Thank you for coming.
Wow. I don't know how much of that's true. But anyway, thank you so much, Jan, for organizing this and letting me have the opportunity to tell my story. When Jan called me, because we hadn't talked for a number of years, we lost touch a couple of years, and she just kind of called me out of the blue, and she's just saying, hey, how's everything going? I'm like, well, I've got a story to tell you, and I told her my story, and she goes, oh, we want to have you at the meeting, and I'm like, really? And she goes, yeah. I says, but isn't this happening to everybody? I mean, my situation is really no different than anybody else. And she goes, no, we want to hear your story. I'm like, okay. So I'm here very humbly to tell my story because Jan wanted me to, and I did my very best to make it so you guys would have some visuals, and also I'm going to take you back to the night of September 13th when this all happened of 2021. And I am a believer, and in my heart, when all this stuff was happening way back when, in 2020, 2019-ish, something immediately did not feel right in my spirit. And I quickened my spirit because I know the Word of God lives in me. And that truth was not accepting the lies that were trying to be fed to me. So immediately I put my feelers on, and probably it was last summer I had gotten this newsletter. You can see it's there, summer of 2021, yeah, so it was last year. And I could not believe what I was seeing. Here are these two children with masks on, holding signs that says save the animals. And I can't tell you how infuriated I was when I saw this. Now, mind you, I am an empty nester. I have 3 grown children. My last child just graduated from college this past weekend on Mother's Day. Hallelujah. And anyway, this scripture came, it's Ephesians 5:11, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And all along, I am a Christian, but I do say naughty word sometimes, a shit starter. And I've gone to these different stores, not wearing masks and, having the confrontations and all that kind of stuff. But nothing ever happened like what happened on September 13th. When I went to the school board meeting, because 80% of my taxes goes to the school board. And I decided, you know what, even though my kids are gone, I still have skin in this game, and I'm going to go speak in that school board meeting and tell them what I think of this. And one of the things I was going to say is, you know what, your kids should self-identify as an animal, then they won't have to wear masks. But anyway, that wasn't the only thing I was going to say. So again, like I said, the foundation of all that was propelling me or compelling me to fight everything that they were trying to shove down our throats was rooted in the Word of God that my mom taught me from a little child. And these were the words that were in my heart. And the first one was that the Lord formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. So when they're trying to tell you that you have to wear a mask, well, you know what? That's where God breathed life into me. I'm not going to snuff out my life. The second one is 2 Corinthians 3:18, that I'm not going to go unveil. I'm going to go unveiled before the Lord. I'm not going to cover my mouth. I am His creation, and I'm going to proudly, walk this earth as such. And then Daniel 3 and Daniel 6. When Daniel 3 is about the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel 6 is about Daniel being thrown into the lion's den. And both situations, they got into trouble because they didn't want to follow the king's edicts or his commands or his mandates. They were going to follow God's law. And I decided that's exactly what I was gonna do. If I had to go into the fiery furnace, if I was gonna be thrown into the lion's den, I was gonna do it standing on God's word.
Amen.
So, leading up to September 13th, a month before, on August 2021, we went to a city council meeting because they were going to vote on whether they were going to reject the mask mandate in our city or they were going to continue the mandate. And as you can see, there was a big group of people that came. There was probably over 100, and before the city council meeting, we all had gathered outside. We were petitioning. Media had come and all that kind of stuff. And then it was time for us to go in. And at that point, they were still social distancing. They had the whole room filled with chairs, a whole dozen of them, 6 feet apart. But all of us who came there to protest and make our voice heard about the mask mandate for the city, we all walked in together, stood in the back of the room, standing room only, because they had us scrunched up there, and no mask. And the mayor got very angry at us and says, hey, we have a mask mandate and it's still in place and everything like that. There were police flanked against the city hall, and we all stood there and we defied the mayor. The police were never told to come take any of us out. None of us ever social distanced, and we never put a mask on. There was not a single arrest. The meeting went on, and the mandate was dropped that night. And as you can see, my county had dropped the mandate in May. So now, May 2021, the county dropped the mandate. August 2021, the city had dropped the mandate. I go to the school board meeting in September. I'm sorry, I still get emotional. I go to the school board meeting in September, and I'm not gonna wear the mask. We're out there kind of petitioning. My friend Paula, who came from Columbia, she was with me that night as well. And I figured there was gonna be a little bit of an issue. I was really shocked that there weren't very many people coming to the school board meeting. And there was only maybe like 3 people that went on into the school board meeting. They were parents. They were protesting the mask mandate, and to get in, you can see people were stopped with people with masks, telling them they can't come into the school board unless they wore a mask. These people put the mask on so they could go into the school board meeting. So I waited for everything to clear. Now mind you, they had it all planned out. There were cops there, and I don't say cop, I said cops. There were police there, and I knew what was about to gonna happen. And I waited for the media to clear. I waited for everybody to go into that school board meeting because I was gonna try and get in there without a mask. So I come up as nonchalantly as I can without a mask on, and I get stopped by basically this is only one of the guys, but this one guy is the head of security for school board. And they were trying to tell me that I had to wear a mask. And I have the video. As a public accommodation, according to federal law, Title III. Well, I'm a taxpayer, so this is my business.
No.
This is my business.
It says right there on the side, you have to have a mask on.
No, I don't. It's not the law. You know who makes the law? Our legislative branch makes the law. Not you, not the governor, not the city council. Nobody makes the law except our legislative branch, and that's what I'm gonna follow.
Outside.
I'm not stepping
Don't step
outside.
I'm gonna ask this officer to give you a trespass.
Under what?
I'm not trespassing.
You're trespassing,
No,
because
I'm
I
not
asked you to
doing
leave and I'm
anything
allowed to
illegal.
ask
Then
you.
I'm gonna stop paying my taxes to you.
Oh, you can do that if you want to, okay?
That's bullcrap. We're paying
No.
taxes, and you're telling me that I can't come in here, that she can't come in here. We're paying taxes.
And she has a medical
I
exemption.
have a medical exception. Why can't I come
And
in?
also, there's a federal law that you're saying. Did you know that, 21 U.S. Code 360 BBB3 says that no emergency authorized medical product can be mandated
That includes the mask, the PCR test, and the jab.
I can't
So,
tell you that.
You're not a doctor, you can't tell me what I can and can't do.
I can tell you that it's quasi-public property, and we have every right to determine who's allowed
It
inside
doesn't
and who's
matter,
not.
doesn't matter.
That
This
doesn't
is
matter.
public, this is open to the
Quasi-public,
public.
that's not true.
This is crazy. Yeah, because I'm being a lawful abiding citizen.
That's the assistant police chief.
I said.
And I got a religious exemption, she's got a medical exemption.
I have a
You pay
medical
our taxes.
exemption.
I'm asking you.
And I don't follow commands, I follow the law. We are a constitutional republic. The legislative branch of our government makes laws. You tell me the code that tells me that I have to walk in there with a mask.
Can you come out here and talk to me?
No, I wanna go in there and listen to what I pay my taxes for.
The meeting is online right now.
That is not appropriate. I have access to enjoy it just like anybody else do. If I wanna watch it in person, I'm gonna watch it in person.
But we're asking you.
You know, I don't do everything I'm told. Especially if it's illegal. You're being a tyrant. You're being a commie. You're being a brown shirt. I'm not doing anything illegal.
Ask you to leave because you're trespassing.
This is a public
I'm
accommodation.
asking you, please leave.
I'm not leaving. This is a public accommodation. This is a public accommodation, Title 325. Your private business serves the public and therefore must abide by all state and federal laws. No business policy supersedes the law. No business policy supersedes the law. No business policy supersedes the law.
I understand, and I'm asking you to turn around.
Well, I'm not doing
I'm not gonna arrest you.
You're not even, you're, there you go.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Please turn around and walk out.
I will not.
You're under arrest.
You got this? Okay.
No, you're not. I got my phone. Give me my
No,
phone.
right here.
Be off the
Let go
property.
of my phone.
She
Give
has to
me
be
my
off the
phone.
property.
Give me.
I've asked all I.
Give my phone.
You really work for Columbia Public, or Columbia Police Department. You do, and you really are gonna do this when it's like a, no, I just don't understand. This doesn't do anything.
The property or you will be arrested. You can go to the sidewalk.
I'm not in there. I'm not in.
Please go.
I want your phone. Hand me your stuff. Oh my God, you guys are freaking, you're sad. You're a sad employee. You're a sad. Pathetic. You're pathetic. That you're arresting somebody because of a stupid, unlawful thing.
Yeah, because I want to talk. Because I won't wear a mask. Tyrant, commie, all of you.
Excuse you. I'm going to the sidewalk. Where do you think I am? Get away from me. Give me.
Okay. So that was the start of our fun night. After with that, there was more video, but I won't take the time of the meeting. There was a lot going on. But anyway, they kept me in handcuffs for over an hour. They finally let me go. They gave me a citation. I had a court date a month later. We went down to the city to file complaints against the officers. And I had a religious exemption. The other woman that you never saw on camera, she had a medical exemption. Also, I had a medical exemption as well, but I was just using my religious one. And then, you know, Paula was here with us. So that night, I was reading the laws. So I had done lots of research, and that's why when I would go into different stores and they would try to tell me to leave, I always wore and carried literally in my purse my laws. Because if you don't use and exert your rights and know your laws, they are going to screw with you. And that's exactly what they did with me that night. And so some of the laws, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the healthyamerican.org, that's Peggy Hall. You can see her right down there. I highly recommend, if anybody's starting to tiptoe and don't know what their rights are, what to say, or how to handle it, go. and to her website. She has amazing videos. She has them all categorized based on your medical health, based on your employees, based on, public accommodations. But I had done all this research, and that's why I was able to verbalize a lot what I was verbal. Nobody has the right to tell you that you're a public threat. That is only done through a court order. So all this stuff, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, so I won't spend a lot of time, but if you need laws, and you need a way to articulate it, these are very succinct ways to do it, and carry them with you if you still feel like you need to run into that, or start educating people that you love. So again, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but maybe you have other people in your sphere of influence that you can educate as well, and these are wonderful resources that they can do on their own. It's called thehealthyamerican.org. It's all put together, and you need to use thehealthyamerican.org. The other one I had, and this is so awesome, and this is what I was talking about with him that night, a public accommodation. We have civil rights, Title II, public accommodation. They cannot disobey the law. Just like they can have private policies, but their private policies cannot supersede the law. And their private policies actually only apply to their employees. It has nothing to do with you as the public. Just like when you go to hotels and they have swimming pools, all the swimming pools have to have that special chair so that the handicapped can get in there. That's a part of the public accommodation. You can't discriminate against the handicapped. Or let's say you're going into Menards, let's say, not that anything happened there, and they're trying to tell you that you can't walk in unless you put a mask on. Well, are they going to tell some lady who's practicing the Muslim religion that she has to take her burqa off to come in? We have to stand on exactly the laws that they created to protect their minorities. We need to protect ourselves and stand up for ourselves. And this is one of the ways to do it. And this gives you all the examples on what laws that they try to break and they try to hoodwink you with, but the things they say of public accommodation. Again, even if it's a private business, they cannot break the law. This is another one I had, the 2-1, yeah, oh, scoot over. The 2-1 U.S. Code where no emergency authorized medical product can be forced on you. It has to be informed consent. Also, we have the religious exemption of Title II civil rights, that your rights to express your religion the way that you want to, like I believe in Genesis 2:7, God breathed a life, a breath in me. I'm not going to cover my nose and mouth where that breath was breathed in. That's my expression of my religion, and it will not be infringed upon. And if it is, this will happen. And then Missouri Constitution, Section 5, religious freedom. Again, we have the ability to control and protect all of our rights. They cannot interfere on our Bill of Rights, and part of the Bill of Rights is our protection to express ourselves with regards to our religion. Now, that night when they handed me that citation, they did charge me with a statute, and on the statute that supposedly I disobeyed was trespass. So Missouri Revised Statute talks about free and equal access to public accommodations. So therefore, they were discriminating against me based on my willingness and wanting to speak there, and they weren't accepting my religious exemption. Just like, say for instance, if they said, you know what, we're only going to allow people to speak 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes tonight, so we want you to smoke a line of crack so you can talk a little faster so that we can get through the meeting. Now, they may want you to do that, but is that against the law? It absolutely is. Just like what they were asking me to do is to put on a mask. That's against the law because that's infringing upon my religious freedom. And then I'm going to talk about another one. It's another Missouri Constitution. We have some exercise of religious freedom here in Missouri that continues to protect all over the place our religious expression. So I talked about some statutes, but now I'm going to switch to talking about a little bit about my Missouri Constitution and all of our constitutions. And this is where my journey helped me grow so much. And I don't know if you guys feel like this, but sometimes unless you're put into a rock and a hard place, you don't really grow. We all kind of get a little bit lazy and we just kind of go with the flow. Well, now my back was against the wall. I had to show up to court. I didn't know what to do. I knew enough from what I was learning that we do have all these constitutional rights. And it's in our Bill of Rights. Why am I being charged for doing exactly what I have the freedom, the unalienable right, a right that I cannot be separated from? Why am I now having to show up in court for this? Shouldn't they be showing up to court? And so I was getting a lot of information from different sources. I don't know if a lot of you guys have heard a lot about people writing affidavits and people writing notices. And I was hearing about other people who were using the courts, and then other people were saying stay freaking away from the courts. I didn't know what to do, but you know what? I was listening to it all. And so what I came up with was a hybrid. And my process of learning this was amazing. So I started off doing notices in Constitution, telling these people how they have trampled on my constitutional rights and who I was and who they were. And so when I first started doing this, I decided that I was going to handle it myself. Now, before I decided to handle it myself, I decided I was going to take advantage of a free consult with an attorney and kind of, ask him some questions. And long story short, he says, you know what? You're going to be fine. He goes, you seem like a rather intelligent person. He goes, you're not going to have to go to jail. He goes, I think you'll be able to handle it just fine. And I says, okay, great. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to use all this knowledge that I have. I'm not really worried about it. Even if it doesn't turn out great, I'll have to pay a fine or something like that, but I'm not going to go to jail. So I end up going to my court date, which is a month after the incident. So now we're in October. So I go to court, and I'm checking CaseNet. If you've ever been a criminal, you know what CaseNet is, right? Well, I didn't know what CaseNet was, but you can find like a case on there, your name, what you're being charged with, and when your court date is, and what documents have been filed with the county clerk. And I'm not finding anything. And so I'm like, well, I guess I better go. So I ended up, got all my stuff together, all my documents, and I show up, and I go to the county clerk, and I'm like, hey, I says, I don't know if I'm in the wrong place or not, but I says, this is who I am. I don't see anything here. I'm supposed to be here, though. There's supposed to be a court case for me. And she goes, oh, okay. And I said, she goes, what's your name? And she looked it up. She goes, no, I can't find anything. I said, well, I have the citation right here if you want it. She goes, oh, yeah, please. Long story short, 20 minutes later, they're looking everywhere. They can't find anything. They're like, this is really weird. They're like, the cops didn't even file any paperwork. We don't see anything. And I'm like, really? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, okay, can you write something out that I was here? You're like a good little girl. Can you make sure that everybody knows I was here and nobody else showed up? And she goes, yeah. And so she wrote out a piece of paper, and she said the date and said there was no case filed. I had shown up like I was supposed to, and I left. And I took a picture of me in front of the courthouse, and like, fantastic. This was all, bullies with guns, basically. They had to do that to me to not even show up and just waste my time. So I took a big sigh of relief. Well, guess what? 2 months later, as you can see, I have it on there, I got something in the mail. And it was a summons to court. The really bad thing is, not only was there a trespass charge, this is now the assistant prosecuting attorney throwing, okay, so we're not talking City of Columbia anymore. We're not talking the school board. The assistant prosecuting of Missouri throws now trespass and assault on me. Now we're talking some trouble. So I'm like, okay, I don't know about all this stuff that I'm doing. So I am going to try to find an attorney. So I decided to go on the hunt for an attorney, and does anybody know this case that happened with Health and Human Services and the people in the St. Louis who actually won the case against Health and Senior Services with, it was in Cole County, Judge Green made a judgment, you know about that, okay? I'll get to that in just a little bit. But anyways, I could remember, because I started interviewing some of the attorneys in Columbia, and I'm like, if this is what I got to pick from, I'm in deep trouble. Because they had no idea. They wanted to go to case law. They're like, what is your basis for your religious freedom? And I'm like, the Constitution. I'm like, I am sunk, because these people play ball with each other. They golf with each other. I can't get these people. And so I'm like, Lord, what am I gonna do? What can I do? And then I remember this case that had just been won, and I'm like, I gotta find the attorney on this case. So long story short, I dug and dug and dug, and I found her. This attorney wasn't able to help me, but she has a friend that can help you. And so this attorney that I ended up hiring was the one who helped Ray's Cafe in Kansas City area, if you guys are familiar with that. Remember that one lady who owned Ray's Cafe? And she defied Jackson County and didn't make her, patrons wear masks. She didn't wear her employees wear masks, so on and so forth. So I'm like, okay, good. So I think I've got a good constitutional attorney. So I hire her. She's a doll. She's wonderful, and she's helping me out. But I'm still doing lots and lots of research. And let's look at this. So John Jay, he's the first chief executive of the U.S. Supreme Court, and he says every member of the state ought diligently to read and study the Constitution of his country and teach the rising generation to be free. By knowing their rights, they will sooner perceive when they are violated and be the better prepared to defend and assert them. Who teaches our kids the Constitution in school anymore? Who teaches them what their rights are? Exactly. So we have to do this. How scary it is, no matter what it costs, if you're standing alone. And you know what? I really felt I was standing alone. Paula was with me when I went to court a couple of times, and then Jan called me out of the blue. Other than that, I was really standing alone. I was going through this. They're like, my friends are like, ooh, hope it goes well for you. I'm like, I do too. So then I was like, I gotta rely on this Constitution. I gotta rely on God's word. I mean, this is right. I'm standing for what's right, no matter what the cost is. So U.S. Constitution, Article 6. The Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. And when I was starting to talk to these attorneys, and they were saying, well, we need to look into case law. No. The Constitution is the law of the land. That is case law. And then Miranda versus Arizona, I'm going to just cut short. There can be no rulemaking or legislation which would abrogate your rights. And your rights are reserved in the Bill of Rights. This was such an awakening. I did not know this, and I've gone through some of these constitutional courses that Jan has been referring to too. And maybe I just wasn't in the place where it would mean anything to me, but going through this has matured me and grown me so much in the Constitution. I have an amazing appreciation for it, and I will stand on it. So one of the things I learned, Article 4, Section 2, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and inhumanities of citizens in several states. Do you know what that means? It doesn't matter if it's the Missouri Constitution. It doesn't matter if it's the Virginia Constitution or the Arizona Constitution. If you're in Alabama, all those constitutions are yours. So what's found in Maryland's Constitution applies to you in Missouri. What applies to Missouri Constitution applies to them in Maryland. Did you guys know that? No. I didn't know that either. And then Article 4, Section 4. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect, so on and so forth. So all of us in all of our states have a republic form of government. And all of those constitutions apply to any one of us. We don't have to just use the Missouri Constitution because we're in Missouri. So Kentucky Constitution, Section 2. Absolute and arbitrary power over the lives, liberty, and property of free men exists nowhere in a republic, even in the largest majority. Nobody can tell you what to do with your individual rights in a republic form of government. That's in the Kentucky Constitution. That applies to you in Missouri. The Bill of Rights, First Amendment. Of course, what I was trying to do that day is have the freedom of speech. How can you have freedom of speech if they're trying to tell you to cover your mouth? And speaking of which, with regards to Peggy Hall, I was so armed. Now, she does this to make a little bit for all her efforts, and it's so worth it. When I did it, it was like $20. She has all the laws in the state of Missouri that apply to you with regards to your freedom to stand on these any kind of these mandates, and she puts them all together for you for like $20. So worth it. It's like 6 pages worth. Mine are just bleeding and tattered because I carry them everywhere and I have them memorized. You wouldn't believe what's in it. It's so worth the money. So she has that part of that in there as our right to be peacefully assemble and to redress our grievances with our government. They were taking 8% of my tax money. Do you not think I have the right to redress my government? Missouri Constitution, to peaceably assent, again, telling you can redress the grievances. And I'm going to skip over some stuff. Missouri Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, powers of the people over internal affairs. The sole and exclusive right to regulate the internal government and police thereof. The U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 1. Now this is the other thing. Other than what I just said, I did not know the constitutions of other states also can be used by me in Missouri. So that blew my mind. So this is the other thing that blew my mind. U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. It's very tiny, but I wanted to put it all in one page because it all fits on one page. Why is this so important? There are only 18 things that the United States Congress was hired by we the people to do. They are trampling on our rights and they are fooling us. And I'll tell you how. When Congress does anything other than those things, the 18 that I just showed you, they are acting outside the scope of their authority that we the people gave them. We never granted them power to make rules for us the people. Government officials are trustees of our freedoms. The trust indenture is the Constitution. It's the document that contains the terms and conditions which govern the conduct of the trustees and the rights of the beneficiaries. Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 29. Provisions of the Bill of Rights exempted from powers of government. Provisions of the Bill of Rights exempted from the powers of government. If you guys don't know what your Bill of Rights are, read them. The powers forever are to be remain inviolate. They cannot violate them. To guard against transgressions of high powers herein delegated, we declare that everything in the Bill of Rights is exempted out of general powers of the government and shall forever remain inviolate, and all law contrary thereto are the following provisions shall be void. Our constitutional rights. A right guaranteed to the citizens by the United States Constitution and the state constitution so guaranteed to prevent legislative interference therewith. Statutory law. They threw statutory trespass on me. Is created by the enactment of legislature. They cannot write legislation over or restrict our rights in the Bill of Rights. What did I say was in the Bill of Rights? My right to practice religion the way I want to. These rights are untouchable and are based on common law. Legislature does not write common law. The statutes they created in the legislature bind them and their personnel of the 18 things that we told them they could do. It does not bind us, we the people. When they use the word person or government officer, this is different from the people. The servant, the trustee, has no power to attack the master. Who's the master? Isn't this tricky? Isn't this infuriating? Elected, quote unquote, selected, as we've been horribly and rudely awakened that our elections have been more of a selection, and we've just been privy to it now the last 2 years, but God knows how long it's been going on, right? So these elected representatives and candidates swore an oath to a constitution to be kind, that they never read, to be probably more truthful, are willing to oppress our rights with. And that's why it's you and me that have to get super real with them. The real law. The common law is the real law, the supreme law of the land. The code, rules, regulations, policies. How many times have we heard policy? Statutes are not law. Common law, as distinguished from statutory law created by the enactment of legislature. That's black laws. So listen to this, common law. It's distinguished from statutory law. We reserved our rights in the Bill of Rights. That is common law. The statutory law that is made by the legislature is the statutes that they make to rule themselves and to conduct our business that we've given them control to do, and nothing beyond that. So these statutes that they try to rule over us with, like these trespasses, don't even apply to we the people, it's the person, and they got us thinking that it applies to us. Common law action. Action governed by common law rather than statutory, equitable, or civil law. Legislature does not write common law. Any case dealing with a statute is not a common law action. Common law is to be the rule of the people in every court. If not, okay, there's some kind of misspelling there, but anyway, if you're not in an administrative court, this is called I don't even know how to pronounce it, it's Latin, NISIPRIUS courts. They are instituted by statutory provisions, not constitutional. Now I'm going to bring this real to you. And I have no idea where this all came out and why it happened this way, but I'm just going to tell you what I know. So, I hired the attorney, and we would have to go in every month for a 90-second hearing. Mind you, I've retained this attorney for lots of money. Thank God I had somebody step up to do it for me, a good one, a constitutional one that I thought. And she would have to drive into town because she was from Kansas City for a 90-second hearing. We did this on April 20th. We had a hearing. She told the prosecuting attorney all along I was not going to plead guilty to any of this. We were going to go to trial. The prosecuting attorney, we don't want to go to trial, not another one of these. And she's like, well, she's not going to plead guilty. So we go April 20th, and we schedule on that 90-second hearing a trial date, which is going to be June, I think it's 6th. We leave the courtroom, and we're in the halls of the county courthouse. And I talked to my attorney before she leaves town. And I said, so I guess we scheduled a jury trial, a trial. I says, it is gonna be a jury trial, right? And she goes, I don't know if you want a jury trial. She goes, that judge seems pretty reasonable. So yeah, she goes, you don't, and she went on to tell me a story that sometimes juries don't know better and they make really bad decisions. And I understand that because I've heard some of those things go right too. And I says, oh no. I said, and I had my book. Like I tell you, I'm not kidding you, I carry my laws and my books that I'm reading. So I've been reading the County Sheriff's Handbook. And I've been reading this. And I'm like, oh no, I've got to have a jury. I says, because you know what? And I went to the page and it was basically that last little paragraph I have here. And I'm like, no, I says, if I don't have a jury trial and the judge is gonna make the decision, then I'm in an administrative court. I says, I don't wanna be in an administrative court. I says, because I'm gonna lose this case because judges base their judgments and can use their judgments based on statutes. I says, I'm standing on my constitutional rights. I don't want this kind of court, and I didn't know how to pronounce it. I'm like, this court, I don't want this court. So I says, I want a jury trial. And she says, well, is the prosecuting attorney's office here in the courthouse? And I'm like, I don't know, I think so. So she calls him up, he answers. She's like, I'll be right back. And she goes up to his office. Now mind you, I'm remembering, I've been in the courthouse a little while now. I thought it was gonna be 90 seconds, and here I am having a tough discussion with my attorney. So I pull my car up in front of the courthouse so I don't get a ticket. And she comes out and she goes, Kelly, we gotta talk. I'm like, okay, let's talk. So she goes, no, we gotta go someplace and talk. So I'm like, my heart's beating. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. So long story short, let's see, where am I at on my presentation? Oh, long story short, I skipped a few things. She presents me with something, and it's called Deferred Prosecution Agreement. And she's really excited about this. And I'm like, well, it can't be that bad, it's only one page. So I'm like, okay, let me look at it. Well, I'm reading the first line, and first of all, I'm like, this can't be real. I says, this must be a boilerplate. I mean, I see he's got my name and my address on it, but he doesn't even have the charges. So immediately, they drop the assault charge. And then, all they have, now, we had to pencil in the trespass charge. But I read the first line, and it says, 3 things as if I'm going to be on probation for this deferred prosecution. I'm going to be on probation. I have to follow the laws. I have to make sure I don't do any drugs. And I have to, and they have rules of who I can associate with. At the bottom, it says that if I break this probation, and I'm going to be on this for 2 years, that I waive all statutes of limitations on them bringing this charge against me. And guess what I get to waive? Rights to a jury trial. But if that's not bad enough, I stopped at the first one, the laws, and I read this. I will obey all federal and state laws and all city ordinances and municipalities. And I looked at my attorney. I says, this is why we're where we're at. I says, I will obey all state and federal laws, but I am not going to obey an ordinance. And I says, I don't mean to be rude or anything, but our city just voted in a purple-haired mayor. And our purple-haired mayor might just pass an ordinance for everybody to wear purple hair, or they're gonna have to go to jail. And I says, you know what? I says, that may sound ridiculous, but I bet 3 years ago, if we told you that you had to wear a mask everywhere you went, or you couldn't get food, or you couldn't get medical care, you'd be laughed out of the room. I says, I am not signing that. So, I'll finish that story here in a minute. So she left. And she goes, okay. She was a little like, this is really good. Most people would be really happy to get this. And I'm like, well, I guess we're going to trial. And so, I'll finish that here in a minute. But I want to go back to, again, the principles. Woe unto you lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. You entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in ye hindered. Luke 11:52. Now, I don't think lawyers intentionally try to withhold anything from us. Just like I don't think doctors intentionally try to withhold good health care from us. But what is it about?
Money.
It's about what they aren't told and what they aren't taught. If you don't know the truth and you're wanting to keep a license, you are going to abide by the rules of the dictator that's going to give you that license, right? So how far are we willing to go to really live free? Are we only going to go free and live free only as far as we don't lose our license? Whatever that license may be in. So I'm not throwing darts at anybody. I'm just saying, unintentional or not, ignorance and the lack of knowledge, people perish. Again, that is the truth in the Word of God. Has anybody heard of legal maxims? Yes, you have. Legal maxims. Love them. If you don't know what maxims are, again, this is a part of my journey. Legal maxims are well-established legal ideas, proposals, and doctrines, usually expressed in Latin. They are found in the Old English Common Law, Ancient Roman Law, and found in the Bible. They are a part of general customs and common law of the land of every civilized nation. This is the real law. And let me tell you how important it is, because I have referenced both the Black Laws Dictionary, if anybody have heard about Black Laws. We have legal maxims, and we have common law. Why are all those fundamental places to find what real law is and what applies to us as free human beings is? Why is it so important to go to the foundation, just like our Constitution, our Bill of Rights? Is because each generation loses the truth, and not only do they lose the truth becomes perverted. Let me give you a perfect example. Did you know that they have changed in the last 2 years the definition of the word vaccine?
Yes.
Case in point, they are constantly reinventing what words mean, which are nothing to do with what they really are. Everybody needs to search out Maxims of Law compiled by Charles Weisman. People need to find a Black Laws Dictionary, 5th edition or older. They need to read and memorize their Bill of Rights. And they need to teach their children all of these things, so it gets carried on to the next generation. And these maxims of law are categorized. I pulled it out of 62C. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by subsequent act. The mandate of an immoral or legal thing is void. A thing void ab initio, from the beginning, is the one that never went into effect. Why is that interesting? I refer to you to Robinson versus Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. Robin, and I think it was a church in St. Louis, were the ones that brought this case. It was about the COVID orders that are unconstitutional and are made null and void. Daniel R. Green's judgment in the Cole County Circuit Court was made on 11/22/21. Everybody should print that off. It is 11 pages of Constitution. And to hear it from one of our judges in the courthouse is very, very empowering. And what was so unsettling to me, when all this was happening and I was looking for an attorney, and then I would say, hey, all this stuff is unconstitutional. It's been ruled this way in November. And they're like, but wasn't that ruling after your incident at the school board meeting? And I says, yeah, it was. But I says, just because the judge recognized it unconstitutional in November doesn't mean it wasn't unconstitutional in September. And guess what? This was before I come across the maxims of law. The mandate of an immoral, illegal thing is freaking void. Common sense, people. I may not be the brightest thing in the drawer, but I do got some common sense. Unbelievable. So the CPS security director and Columbia Assistant Police, who just happened to be on the property and ordered that I be arrested, the judge says they were making discretionary rulemaking. It is impermissible placing arbitrary or capricious rulemaking in the hands of public officials, thus combining legislative and administrative power. And what do we have? The separation of powers, do we not? Missouri Constitution, Article 1, Section 31, fines and imprisonments fixed on administrative agents, that no law shall delegate to any commission, bureau, board, or administrative agency authority to make any rule fixing or a fine or imprisonment a punishment of its violation. We have 3 departments of government, a separation of power, Article 2, Section 1. They are divided distinctly into legislative, executive, and judicial. And Missouri Revised Statute 565130. I'm going back to a statute, they're not my favorite anymore, I love the Constitution. But this is a good one, false imprisonment. By their own statutes, they can get in trouble. A person commits the offense of kidnapping in the 3rd degree if he or she knowingly restrains another unlawfully and without consent, so that as to interfere substantially with his or her liberty. Who do you think that might apply to? By the way, I never got to go to that meeting and make my comments. Also, things that they do, which you guys have all probably heard, these are federal laws: deprivation of rights under color of law, conspiracy against our rights, and civil action for deprivation of rights. You guys all familiar with these laws? Yeah. So they do it all the time. Under color of law, statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage of any state or territory or District of Columbia causes to be subject any citizen of the United States or other person within the jurisdiction thereof to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunity secured by the Constitution, and law shall be liable to the party injured in an action of law, suit in equity, or other proper proceedings for redress. Open meetings law. Now, the our Attorney General has a great website. He has lots of really great documents. So I was trying to dig into a little bit more of that. With regards to the Missouri Sunshine Law and open meetings, like, why would they stop me from talking? So, in their own open sunshine laws and open meetings and records meetings, it says every reasonable effort will be made to grant people access. And I'm just pulling out a few quotes up here of their very own documents. And the other thing is, it will be liberally construed, and there are exceptions to promote public policy of openness. Now, the Attorney General argued with the Missouri School Board Association is subject to the Sunshine Law because it is a quasi-public government body under the Sunshine Law. You know what's hilarious? I don't know if you remember in the video when I was saying, hey, this is a public accommodation, and this is your, you have to follow laws. He goes, this is quasi-private. No, it's not. It's actually quasi-public. Well, I'm like, what the heck is quasi-public? Because I know I've heard that term before. And so quasi-public is a person or corporation which primarily enters into contracts with public government bodies, accepts public funds, 80% of my tax dollars, and performs public function. So I did some research. That school board, all across Missouri, was granted through the ESSER, which is elementary, secondary, education, something or other. You know what I'm talking about, everybody? This is for the whole state of Missouri. They got money from the feds. It was called American Rescue Plan, so we can get our kids back to school safely. And it's called Return to the School Roadmap. Well, guess what's in there? CDC guidelines. For them to get the money and keep the money, they have to follow them. And guess what that includes? Wearing those stupid masks. And why didn't they want anybody talking against the mask in that meeting? So I did a little work, and you can see the state of Missouri in that elementary, secondary, assumption, education, whatever, I should have written it all out, got almost $2 billion. Quasi-public government body, chapter 610, it violated fines of $1,000 and attorney's fees. So they accepted $2 billion. They didn't let me in the building and make all kinds of effort to make sure I could go into it. Looks like they violated, and I'm gonna at least get $1,000. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you the end of the story. The end of the story is, after a week, I did not hear from my attorney. So I emailed her and I says, hey, I'm waiting with bated breath. I'm really wanting to know, has anything made changes on that document? She goes, no, I haven't heard anything yet, but as soon as I hear, I'll let you know. I'm like, okay. So of course, this has been on my mind since September, really nervous and all this kind of stuff. A week ago, Thursday, I got a phone call from my attorney. I did not answer the phone because I was with a client. She left a message. I'm happy to tell you, they dropped the charges. I cannot find it. It looks like your case has been disposed of. Now, I hope I don't sound too long-winded, but I'm telling you, I learned a lot of things in a lot of different places. And I don't know what made the change, if any of it. God Almighty, a combination of God and knowledge, being stubborn, I have no idea. But all I know is that's a freaking miracle in my eyes. So one of the other places that I learned a few things was, has anybody learned or heard of how to win in court without a lawyer? Okay. So if anybody's interested in this, on my last slide, I'm going to have my email. If you guys are interested in it, email me. I will send you a link. This is unbelievable, and I'm going to tell you why it's unbelievable. Just like they have kept us in the dark with regards to our constitutional rights and our Bill of Rights and what the statutes are and how they simply do not apply to us unless we break the common law, which is harming somebody, right? Okay? That's the common law. If you harm somebody, then that's a different story. But if you're just doing all the things that are protected, your inalienable rights, rights that you cannot be separated from, then you have standing with the Constitution. And if those rights seem to be threatened, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can do it through affidavits and notices. I just found out, you know what? They're dragging me into the court. This affidavit and notices aren't going to help me. I don't care how much they say, hell, don't go into the courts and all that kind of stuff. I learned that there's a difference between an administrative court and a constitutional court, and I stood on that, and I learned that through my maxims of law and through my sheriff's handbook. But then also, what was huge in my learning process is how to win in court without a lawyer. And what it is basically, you're going to know as much, if not more, than what a lawyer is going to know going through law school. But guess what? He's going to be in debt from going to school, being taught only what they want him to know, and then he's going to be with the bar. And to keep his license, he's going to only be able to do certain things. If not, guess what? You're going to get ostracized. You're going to get put on the blacklist. So you, representing yourself in court through the knowledge of the jurisdictionary course, you're going to get to do things the lawyers won't even think about doing. So I highly recommend